I'm not the greatest. I don't consider myself a great player, but I just try to do better playing every day, whether it's getting my sound a little better, whether it's getting my hands better, my phrasing better, my technique better. I'm always trying. And this is just some advice that's this, like, take it from me, the guy who tried to do it all, not saying the wrong way, but I wish I was hip. I wish I knew now what I didn't know then, because a lot of that stunted me in a way, because guys, welcome back to the riff. Today there won't be much playing. I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that I think is important. I posted the Cougar video last week, and I got a lot of messages on Instagram and my Facebook with just basically not asking anything really about the amp, just where they could buy it and how much it was. And it prompted me to want to maybe shed some light on something. There's a big thing with I don't want to say it's an epidemic, but I see it a lot where people don't want to try to search for their sound and search for how they want to sound, and they just want to find whatever the pedal is and plug it in because it's going to work for them, or whatever the amp is and plug into it because it's going to work for them. There's so much more into all of it. I mean, there's a lot of tube setup that is involved. There's a lot of, capacitors, there's treble bleeds in the guitar, there's strings, there's so many factors in it. It's not just buying Exhibit A and plugging into it and you're going to sound like this guy or the next guy. A lot of knowledgeable people out there that can help, but I think, if somebody, just to give an example, like with old strats, pre-CBS strats, if you're playing a custom shop guitar, or say an American Fender, I can tell you and I can attest and I can be 100% to you that guitar is going to play, that guitar is going to hold up, and that guitar in some ways is going to be easier to manipulate than an old Strat. Because anybody who has old Strats or plays old Strats know that they are some of the most finicky instruments, and they constantly need attention, and they need upkeep. And they fight you more than they forgive you. And that's the truth. There's a lot into, forming a relationship with a guitar to where every nuance of it, every inch of it, exactly what it's going to do. And the newer stuff, like the custom shop guitars, are great. The Journeymans, the new Journeymans that are out, are really, really great guitars. I get to check a couple of those out, and they're easier and more, I guess, player conscious, I want to say. They really help you. They just want to find one. They don't care about, they don't know what they're looking for, what they're looking at. They don't want to do the research. They just want to send you a message, having you give them the answer. Is this good? Is that good? How would I know if it's good if you're the one playing it? That's like me wearing my shoes and asking somebody if they're tight on their feet. It doesn't make any sense. So those are the things that I try to stress now. Pedals, I predominantly play old wahs and old fuzz faces, or newer fuzz faces with older transistors, because I like how they sound. But that doesn't mean that I haven't played every single one and tried every single one out there just to know, because there may be a little nuance you get from one of those new ones that changes your outlook on things. But I've tried all the dumb your amps, and that's all based on what you're playing. So it really has nothing to do with what the other guy does. But keep in mind that if the other guy is a real tone miser, and he's got a little bit of a tone, and he's nailing some of those tones, and he's obviously if he's catching ears, it's kind of like you're knocking the wind out of his sails when you have no idea how much research has gone into finding what treble bleed capacitor works, or what tube works in V2 but not in V1, and what speaker combo with certain dimension cabs, and how much air is it going to move, and is it open back, is it closed back, How do we set it up? Do we take the Leslie all apart and put a 12-inch speaker in it? And do I run it with a little less power so I can get a slower speed out of it? There's so many things that go into it. And when you just, the whole fun is taken out of the whole experience when you're just sending a message and saying, yeah, what's that? Just so I can have it. Because you're going to sound totally different out of it. I was using the Duelist. I use the Duelist now, and I found tones in it that I love, and I had nothing but great things about it, great things to say about it, and the Duelist is an overdrive by Jesse Davey, mind you. So I was using it, and I used it in some of my videos, and a few of my friends picked one up and they love it, and then, I had somebody got upset about it, not doing something they wanted, but they had it set up in a way where it wouldn't really do what they wanted. It didn't matter who was playing it. It was never going to do what they were trying to get out of it. So it's things like that. It's the way you set your stuff up. It's the way you use your pedal, and it's the way it sounds to you, not to everybody else. I think that players really have to find what works for them. And we all go through that. Well, insert this guy, this guy that we idolize, this player that we idolize. We need to replicate all of his gear. But like all those internet forums say, and all those guys say, and all the old timers will tell you, or that it's probably how they get their sound is 90% them and 10% gear. Stevie did a thing on Howard Stern. He played through like a little practice amp, and he still sounded like Stevie. You guys all, also keep in mind that, if you're playing small clubs and you buy that kit 150 watt steel string Singer Dumble, you're not going to sound like Stevie. There's no way in hell you're going to get that amp loud enough to make it do what it needs to do. I've gotten great tone in small places out of a Princeton reverb, out of a deluxe reverb, and it's more of understanding what the amp is doing, what the guitar is doing, and your ears setting the EQ up to give you a practical setup. And that's a major key in tone is having the right amp. And this is not discouraging anybody. If you want those 100 watt amps, you go get it. But my own advice, again, like I said, I was a young kid with no idea what I was doing. I had a Mexican Strat with 13s on it, a tube screamer, and 2 twin reverbs. And I lived in a 500 square foot apartment. Nothing was happening. The minute I started really learning about, compression and compressing tones and setting the guitar up so it was playable, and after that I got a deluxe reverb with a single 12, and then when I got bored with messing with that, I knew that headroom was kind of what I was after at that point, because where I was playing out, they were small places. So then I tried a different speaker, and I did it in stages. I tried a higher wattage speaker, and then that gave me the cleans I wanted. And then I was able to move on from that and say, well, deluxe is cool, but let me try a super reverb. And then I got into super reverbs, and that's my favorite amp. Super reverb is my favorite amp. You got 4 10-inch speakers, 45 watts. You tube those things right, you can play any gig on a super reverb, and they're great. And Stevie himself said his favorite setup was 2 super reverbs and 2 vibroverbs, and you're talking 50 watts at most power out of each amp. So, it's really working with what you got. The other thing to talk about is maybe the playing style. As far as playing, it's fun, and we're all guilty of listening to our favorite records and trying to cop those things, but there has to come a time to me where my own voice comes through, so I may be really into a Stevie Ray Vaughan phase, or a Ronnie Earl phase, or a Jimmy Vaughan phase, but I'm always trying to show somebody how it's me playing it, and not not me trying to play what's going right on the record, you know. And that's a big thing, because guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't learn Stevie Ray Vaughan licks; they learned their licks. Guys like Jimi Hendrix didn't learn Jimi Hendrix licks; he learned, you know, he played Jimi Hendrix licks. And Philip Sayce is another one. Philip Sayce wasn't playing, you know, wasn't learning Philip Sayce licks; he was putting his own interpretation on it. Eric Gales, you know, Eric Gales and Joe Bonamassa have both quoted Eric Johnson as one of their biggest influences, and you can hear a lot of him in your playing, but you also hear them come through on their playing, and that's a big thing to me. That's a major part in, you know, putting your voice out there, because we don't need five of the same guitar player. In the end, you want to be the one playing. You know, and you want to be the one coming through, and you want everybody to know who you are. And I think that's just a thing that sometimes we, as players, and I'm guilty of it, and there's a lot of people that are guilty of it. Sometimes we get tunnel vision, and it can only be, well, it has to be a pre-CBS Strat, or it has to be a vintage Dallas Arbiter fuzz face. It has to be a vintage wah. It has to be a Dumble or an amp that's going to sound like a Dumble. I've got to play a couple of Dumbles, and one sounded really good, and a couple of the other ones, I just could not get it to work. But that's the way the amps were designed for the guy, you know, for the player. And in the player's hands, the amps sound amazing. Also, becoming more comfortable with your playing and with your gear will make your gear sound better. It will make whatever you're using at that time sound better. You know, good players will sound good through whatever they play through. And, you know, bad players that are trying to play dress up are going to sound the same no matter what they're playing through. And that's just that's just the honesty of it, you know. And this is, you know, just to you know, to end on this is not me on a high horse, or me, you know, patting myself on the back or trying to say anything. I'm the first advocate to say I'm not the greatest player, and I'm not the guy that anybody wants to emulate. You know, I'm the same as everybody else. I just, you know, I've searched for gear, and I found what I liked, and I've searched out guitars, and I found what I've liked and what I don't like. And, you know, I'm grateful for the stuff I have, but the stuff I have is because it does something for me. It's not just I have it to have it. You wouldn't go to the ticket booth at a Hendrix show in the late '60s and say, "Hey, I'm here to we're gonna get 2 tickets for Jimi Hendrix tonight," and the guy wouldn't say to you, "Nah, the show's canceled because Jimmy's fuzz face wouldn't work." You know, those were all just extensions of what they were playing. You know, you wouldn't go to a Stevie show and say, "2 screamers down tonight, guys. No Stevie Ray Vaughan show." It was just an extension of what they were doing. Those guys were minimalists, and they would still play because it's the connection of here, here, and here. You know, and that's kind of what I'm shooting for now. It's not really the gear. You know, if I can go to a gig and set up a fuzz face and just use a fuzz face all night, so I get a clean tone, a rhythm tone, an overdrive tone, and a fuzz face tone, that's all I really need. So this is just, you know, just me trying to maybe to players who are trying to sound like everybody else, and trying to, you know, spend every penny they have to just, you know, approximate the gear that they're playing with, because they think if they get that gear, it's going to sound just like, you know, insert guy, or it's going to make me sound like blah, 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 you know, whoever. It's not. It's really down to listening, you know, surrounding yourself with it. If you're trying to learn a style, surround yourself with it and get a hold of it, learn it. And then the best advice is to, after you've kind of got a good grip on it, forget it, you know, and walk away from it. And then you start watching how, as you're starting to play your own thing, those little nuances, those little tricks of your heroes will start coming in. And that's how you make your own sound. You know what I mean? That's how you mix a little Stevie with a little Jimmy, with a little Ronnie Earl, with a little Jimmy Vaughan, with a little Eric Gales, all those guys. It just starts forming into your own, and then you become, you know, your own player. Yes, quoting your sources, but still putting your own stamp on it. And that's just a piece of advice, you know. And again, this is nobody. This is not a know-it-all. This is me not showing you how to play a lick the wrong way or anything like that. Anything I try to post on here is just my own opinion. I appreciate all the feedback that everybody gives me. And I know sometimes it's not it's not what you want to see or you want to watch, and maybe there's no guitar playing in this video, so it won't really do it for you. But it's just a helpful tip, for future players and future playing, is to always try to find your own voice, because putting your own stamp on it makes it yours. And there's a million guitar players out there, and there's a million great guitar players out there, and you want to kind of be the diamond in the rough, So I have a good friend, Randy Hansen, who's done a Jimi Hendrix tribute for the last 40 years. And he always told me that, when he was doing the Hendrix thing, he got a lot of flack from people. But then, they would see him play and they would realize that he was coming from a genuine place. And, I talked to him about it, and he said to me, we were sitting with two guitars, and he said, play a lick, play a fast lick. So I played it, and then he said, play it again. And he said, you can never play it the same way. He's like, because everything you do is different. And he's like, it doesn't matter if it's the same lick. I can't play it, you can't play it. So if you're in a room full of players and you play it with your own inspiration and you put your own fingerprint on it, that's yours. So that's just a helpful tip, or maybe a disclaimer. You'll save your wallet, you'll save your brain, you'll save your time if you just try to, be happy with what you got and play what you got. This is not the answer. Old guitars aren't the answer, old pedals aren't the answer. It's just really listening, and it's really just, the playing. Also, an update on the 69 Strat. It is in primer, and I'm having a problem with the sealer underneath the primer. It keeps cracking. So this is the third time I primed it. So I need to knock this all down again to bare wood, reseal it, and reprime it. So eventually it'll be done. And eventually it's going to come out good. It's just going to take some time, and that's fine, because I want to really do a good job on it. Some of the contours I really made sure I got, clean and smooth, because the previous owner just nailed it with sandpaper and he didn't flat sand anything. So I just try to do a really good job and make it look fresh. But it's going to be nice, and the Lake Placid Blue is going to be an aged finish. It's going to look really great. I want to thank Chad Fitzpatrick for helping me out with some of the sealing and the prep. You can check him out on Instagram, CF Restorations, and I'll put his link below, and Joseph K Restorations also, because those guys were big helps. So yeah, guys, that was just a little bit of advice, I hope you can apply it to what you're doing, and try to sound like yourself and try to make your own voice shine out. I think it's good for music, and it's good for guitar players, and it's good for all of us too, because you may be thinking you need a guitar, a certain guitar, a certain pedal, or a certain amp to sound, to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But it's all there. It's all there in here and in here. You just got to find it, And like I said, I was tarnished for a long time with buying everything I needed to buy because I needed to sound like someone, and that's really not it at all. So use this to your advantage, or if you feel like this doesn't help, it was just something I wanted to talk about today. So I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.